Okay, hi everyone. I'm Hugh Hawkins. I'm going to go through my statistical segment where we're going to analyze the market via some stats using Market Delta or Investor RT, which is the package I use. They're both the same package. Just quickly go through the intro. Who am I? Some of you may already follow me on Twitter, Trader1906, and I just recently joined Futex. So I trade here full time, and I trade the Euro stocks and the S&P. I trade the Euro stocks in the morning and the S&P in the afternoon. I focus on the first 120 minutes roughly, not including the IB. And the way I use the statistics that I create is more to create a bias for the day. So I want to lean one way and have an idea about what is more probable on the day, and it's a different way of applying essentially technical analysis. I use Market Delta or Investor RT to create the statistics because they keep up to date. They're very fast. If I want to change them, do them on a different product, I can just do that quickly. And again, if you create a study in Excel, then as soon as you've done it, it's out of date. So you have to keep redoing the whole study, which takes a long time. So about the stream, really, what I want to create a weekly interactive stream where I give out ideas, and then you email in or talk to me about ideas, and then we work through stuff together, because that way we can gain information together. And like I said, I've said many times before, you're not going to lose your edge giving away the odd statistic. You're more likely to gain from giving it away because people will question it, and then you bounce ideas between people. And like I said now on the slide, I've gained a lot more from sharing than I have from keeping it to myself. The structure of the stream is going to be I'm going to review the statistics that have worked, what didn't work, and how I was using them during the week. Then I'll go through a study that I've made. Then I'll share the user or the guys at Futex Live, guys and girls, and their suggested statistics. And I'll try and build them in the week before, and then I'll come on and then I'll share them. And then every so often we'll have a topic focus stream. So the idea is there I'm going to pick a market and we're going to pull it apart and really look at how that market trades. We'll look at what rotations it does, when it does those rotations, what time of day you should be focusing on that product, so you can really learn how to fully understand your product from a statistical standpoint. So first off, we're going to go over the narrow initial balance study. So this study looks into a day when the IB is less than 16 ticks, and this is for the Euro stocks. You can apply this study to any market essentially, and then I look to see whether if we have a narrow IB, are we going to break both sides of that IB. So I'm going to go over into the delta. And talk through the study here. So here what I've done is I created a custom indicator that tells me what the range of the IB for that day is. You see, so then we get this histogram here, so you can see obviously when the larger day, so you've got the larger range, and then I've added a profile on the onto this chart. So the profile analyzes this data here and shows me that we have one standard deviation of the IB is between 6 and 16, so 68% of the data falls between this 10-point range, and 8 being the most common, or the mode. So what I was doing was I just said, okay, if we have a 16 or less of an IB, a range, then what is the chances? First off, this top pink line is what it looks to say, was there an IB of 16 ticks or points or less? And I'll just show you that there. So it's basically taking the and I can share these definitions for anyone that has Market Delta, so you can run this on your own platform, and you can also pull it apart and see how it's constructed. But all I'm doing really here is looking at the IB range, and then I'm asking it to say, okay, is it less than or equal to C pound 10? And I have a button up on the top left here where I set the range. So this just sums up if it says, okay, was the criteria true for today, and then it sums it up here, and it uses an indicator in the package called signal statistics, and then it says sum of all signals, and it just sums them all up. So then we say, okay, so if we have an IB that's less than or equal to the range we've specified, which is 16, I then say, did we break both sides of the initial balance? If we do, then it adds it up again. So this is very similar to the statistic above, but it just says, okay, it was the signal true, i.e. did we have an IB that was smaller than 16? If it's yes, then it says, okay, did we break the initial balance high? And if that's yes, then it says, okay, then it looks into, it says, did we break the initial balance low? And if that's all those three criteria are yes or true, then it adds and it sums, it says, okay, well, add another one on. And then, so we go through the 1700 days here, and 78% of the time we have a narrow IB, or less than 16. And then of those 1388 here, I then say, okay, how many broke both sides? And 993 broke both sides. So, just over 71% broke both sides. So when you use that statistic, when you have a narrow IB, there's a very high probability that during the day that we're going to break both sides of the IB. So betting, or essentially when you try and make your day plan, you need to keep in mind that there's a very high probability that we'll come back and take the other side of the IB when we break one side. So there's no point trying to, because it's essentially all you're doing is making calculated guesses or bets each time. So you need to make sure that you're doing what's probable. Obviously, it doesn't work all the time, and the next time it's just 50-50 because this stat will either work or it won't. But over a large sample, you will see, or you should see, if the past data is what is meaningful, then you should see an edge form, and you should start to see it gravitate away from 50-50 more to 70% if we have a narrow IB. So I'll just go over a couple of, I've created a chart to show you when the IB was narrow. So this is just a 30-minute chart, and so this is today's range here. Obviously the green background says that day's range, or that day's IB range, was 16 or less. So yesterday's IB range was 16 or less, so we broke up, and then we came back, broke it, and we broke both sides. The day before, 16 or less, broke both sides. This day here, we didn't. But obviously, there's a 30% chance that we won't break both sides. So this day it worked, this day it didn't, this day it did, and you're going to see a repeating pattern. This day it did, so it does happen quite a lot. It didn't, and then it did here. So you just need to factor this into your plan. When depending on what your plan is and how your trading style is, you need to incorporate these sort of statistics into your plan. The best way to use this, in my opinion, is for outliers. So yesterday I was very keen on looking for this IB low to be taken out, or if you're building a position, I think I'm just trying to see which day it was. I think it was building a long position. I was building a long position on what the day will that be? On Wednesday here, and I was looking to get to the IB high to play. We'd broken the IB low, and I was looking for the IB high, and that I had my trade set up in here, whatever that reason was, and then I knew there was a high probability that we'll trade up to here, and the same on this day as well. Obviously, I think I tried to play it here, but I didn't get my target. So sometimes it doesn't work for your target. Uh, and then I've turned that statistic round completely, and I applied it to the wide initial balance. So this then says, okay, what's a wide initial balance? So I looked in the profile, and you can add a second value area onto your profile in Market Delta or Investor RT. So your standard value area is 70%. It's common that we in the trading community to round it up from 68% to 70% for one standard deviation. Or the second value area you can toggle on and off, and I added in the two standard deviation, so 95.5%. So that basically says 95.5% of the data should fall between this lower bound here 6 and this upper bound here 30. So anything that's above here is a large range, and as you can tell, it only occurs 3.9% of the time. But the markets aren't perfect, so when we apply these normal distributions, you have to remember that this isn't a perfect normal distribution. They're likely to have what they call fat tails. So there are it's not perfect, and you're likely to see a large events either at either side of a profile or a distribution. So getting back to the study, it's the same study. We're looking here for the range, and then here we're saying, okay, this indicator, it says, okay, was the IB range greater than or equal to the £10, which we set up here to be 30? So it says, okay, is it true? If it is, then it just adds another. It adds and accumulates how many times it's happened in the past. So then out of these 1778 days, we had 69 times when we had an IB that was greater than 30. So then we say, okay, how many of those broke both sides? Well, just over 43% did. But the problem we have here is we don't have a huge sample size. But it's common. This is enough. You need about 30, in my opinion. But there are people like Larry Williams who said in an interview a while ago that you don't need a dog to bite you 30 times to know that it bites. So if you want to do statistics with smaller sample size, that's your choice. But you can put a higher weighting in something that has a larger sample size because you've seen it more often, or it's occurred more often. So it should, in theory, be a better representation of the past data and what it should occur in the future. So then the lower signal statistics indicator just adds up. It says, okay, was the IB range large? Okay, equals true. Then we say, okay, and was the high greater than the IB high, and the low less than the IB low? And if that's true, then it will add up and it will accumulate the ones that are true. So we'll have a look at the wide range chart here. So you can see today we have a wide IB. Over here we have a wide IB, so they're a lot rarer. If we scroll back, so I think obviously during periods of more volatile periods, you're more likely to have a wide IB. But you can see, so we'll start here. This it didn't break both sides. This did. This did. This didn't. This did, and this didn't. So but with the stat that's we'll call it 40%. It's a lot harder to use. So this is the other problem. When it gets closer the stat is to 50%, the more it's a coin toss. So you really want to lean on statistics that have either a very low probability of happening or a very high probability of happening, because they give you a much cleaner edge. See, there's going to be a lot more noise in this, in a statistic that's just around 40-45%. It's so close to 50%, it's very hard to squeeze an edge out of that. But the way I would look at this if I was scanning over the recent events is if we're in a period of maybe a crisis, or if as we have a certain level of volatility, you could put a volatility filter in this, and you could say, okay, well the volatility or the average daily range is very high, so then we're more likely to break, and you could look at it that way. But when we have a large IB, we're less likely to break both sides. And that happened, or that's happening today so far. We don't know if it is going to happen or it isn't going to happen. I'll just talk through how one of them is constructed from the ground up. So first off, you can add these buttons up here. I'll just show you. I've set this button to set the cPound variable, which is the chart set variable, and obviously when you click on it, it says what do you want that variable to be, and I've entered 16, and as you can see it says IB range equals percent cPound 10, and then the percent just shows you what cPound 10 is, and then I highlighted cPound 10 here. The IB range here is using a token that is called the MPD token. It's called the mixed periodicity data. So basically it allows you to be on one time frame and pull data out from another time frame, because obviously when we're on the daily chart we want to look at the IB, but the IB, we need the smaller time frame than the daily chart. So if we go into the token here and we double click on here, it will show you. So I have mixed periodicity here, and then I say, okay, what is the data source, and I use something called the session statistics indicator, which then, if I show you how it's set up, it says I'm looking here for the highest price, the highest price, the highest high, and of the first 60 minutes of the session. So that outputs me that. Then it uses the mixed periodicity indicator to obtain that data, because if we just apply it on the daily chart, the data from within the day itself is not on this chart, so you need to use this token to pull the intraday data out. So here all this IB range statistic is, or indicator does, is it just looks for the high minus the low, and then we get the range. It's very basic, and then it is plotted as here as a histogram, just a standard histogram, and then if you want to apply a profile to this, so you can analyze the data, you right click, draw profile, and then you just draw a profile around the charts, and then you can right align it. If we go all bars, and then it shows you the same profile here. Then to create an indicator that sums up how many IBs that are less than 16, we need to create a signal. So the signal itself, if I double click here, you'll see this is saying, okay, what's the signal? And then it will sum up how many times that signal occurred. So we'll first look at the signal. The signal in here is it takes the IB range that we were just talking about here that created the blue histogram, and then so that's CI underscore IBR, and then we say is less than or equal to cPound 10, which is this variable we set here. And if this is a bit confusing for now, over time it will get easier, and especially if you have market delta or IRT and you import these studies through the definitions, and I'll show you how to do that in a second, you'll be able to play with these studies, and you'll be able to go in and look at it yourself over time, and you'll get it. If you can use Excel, you can really use this. So here we're looking for the IB range to be less than or equal to cPound 10, and then the signal statistics indicator says it sums up how many times it was less than 10. So what I'll do is I'll show you how the signal works in here. So if we go into add an indicator and we say signal marker, and then we search for the IB one that I created, so IB range less than 16, and then I just click add and close. Obviously it occurs a lot, so it's very messy on the chart. Probably not a great thing to do there, but yeah, as you can see, it sums up a signal when it occurs. And then this one here is using the signal statistics indicator, and this one sums up how often the second signal occurs. And the second signal we have here is a small range IB, and it breaks both sides. How I get these statistics after we sum them up is I assign each output to a cPound variable. So the number of days at the bottom, and it's always very important to have this indicator at the bottom, which is called POS. It's the position indicator, and it basically just sums up how many bars from the start of the data there were. There's many options you can have for this indicator, but we want how many bars from the start of the data. And because we're just looking at days here, we have how many days did we have. So we're looking at we know how many days we've just been looking at. Then when I assign this value, it says record here. I record it to cPound1. It doesn't really matter which one you choose, but you need to keep track of it. It's easier to start at cPound1 and work your way up, otherwise you'll get yourself confused. So then I take this 1700, so it assigns cPound1 to this number here, 1778. Then the IB here, this 1388, well, you'll see this says assign to cPound2. So we get this 78% by taking the cPound2 and dividing it by cPound1, and it's doable in the text label here. If you look, I've put in / cPound1, and there can be no spaces between them, and that's how you get this percentage here in brackets. If I take it away, you'll see it disappears, and then you just put this code in here, and you'll then get this percentage here. And also note that I've saved this one here as cPound2, the IB range as cPound2, and then when we look at break both sides, we're interested in, okay, how many were less than 16, and then we're saying, okay, well, how many broke? So we're looking at the ones that broke over the ones, or over all of them. So we're looking at 993 over 1388. So to get that 71.5, we then use the same idea. We use / cPound2, and then that gives us our 71.5%. So I know that's probably a lot to take in, but the best way to get these is, what I will do is I'll make available the definition, and the definition is just a text file, and you just need to highlight the text file and then go File, Open, Definition, and it will open the chart just like these charts here. And then you can go in and you can have a look at what I've done on the chart, and then you can manipulate the chart into however way you want it. And you can, teach yourself, which is the best thing to do. Let me just rearrange my screen. So we went through the narrow initial balance, we went through the wide initial balance, and then that's my presentation finished with. But a couple of things I'd like to go over before I go is, and I'd like to have this an interactive stream, so your input is crucial to make it interactive. Otherwise it's just going to be me talking to a computer screen, and we can all learn together and input our ideas. So if you want to contact me, my new Twitter handle is it's HUH, so let me just type it on the screen. It's at HUH_Futex live. And if you can contact me there, or you can Skype me at Trader1906. If you search for me on there, you can find me. For next week, I will have an email, so you can also email me there as well. But please do get in contact and share your ideas with me, and then we can build the stuff and we can share it with other people, and we can develop stuff together. And any questions you have regarding the presentation, or if you want me to send out the definitions to you, please get in touch and I'll share them with you. Okay, perfect. Well, thanks very much for coming to my first stream. I hope it was helpful.